Commander Eric Lewis stood at the observation deck of Earth Orbital Station Alpha, watching the stars. It was the year 2157, and humanity had spread throughout their solar system, but hadn't yet ventured to other stars. The void of space still held many mysteries. The alert sounded suddenly, pulling Eric from his thoughts. Commander Lewis to Command Center. Unknown vessel approaching. This is not a drill. Eric ran through the station's corridors, his heart racing. Unknown vessels meant trouble. Earth had made contact with only 2 alien species so far, and both encounters had been carefully planned. Report, Eric ordered as he entered the command center. Officer Linda Bell looked up from her screen. Sir, it's not matching any known signature. It's small, possibly a scout ship or diplomatic vessel. No weapons detected. Open communications, Eric said, straightening his uniform. First impressions mattered. The screen flickered to life, revealing a slender, blue-skinned being with large, silver eyes. Patterns of light moved beneath its translucent skin. I am Sci-F of the Luminary, the alien spoke in perfect English. I come with urgent news. We need Earth's help. 24 hours later, Eric sat in the United Earth Council chamber with his friend Dr. Samantha Wright beside him. The council members listened as Sci-F explained the threat. We call it the Void. Sci-F projected images of a dark, swirling mass that seemed to eat the light around it. It consumes everything: planets, stars, even the space between. Our homeworld was among the first to fall. Only a small portion of our people escaped. Why come to us? Asked Admiral Kate Jackson, her gray hair pulled back tightly. Your technology is clearly more advanced than ours. Sci-F's lights pulsed slowly. The Void has consumed 17 civilizations already. Many were more technologically advanced than Earth, but none had your unique qualities. What qualities? Eric asked. You humans are survivors. You fight when others would surrender. You find solutions where others see only problems. The remaining free species have formed a coalition, but we need humanity's spirit. Council members exchanged doubtful looks. Dr. Wright leaned forward. Can you prove this threat exists? How do we know this isn't some trick? Sci-F handed her a small crystal. This contains data from our scientific vessels. It shows the Void's path of destruction over the past 30 years. Later, in Dr. Wright's lab, Eric watched as she analyzed the crystal's contents. It's real, she finally said, her face pale. The data is consistent with observable phenomena. This thing has destroyed entire solar systems, and according to these calculations, it will reach the nearest inhabited system in 8 months. Could Earth be a target? Eric asked. Eventually, yes, but we have about 3 years before it reached us. 3 years to prepare, Eric muttered. Or 3 years to help others, Samantha replied quietly. The emergency council session lasted well into the night. Some members wanted to focus solely on Earth's defense. Others argued for joining the alien coalition. We can't turn our backs on other worlds, Eric told the council. If we wait until the Void reaches us, we'll face it alone. Admiral Jackson, who had been silent for most of the debate, finally stood. My grandfather used to tell me stories about the old wars on Earth. He said the greatest mistake nations made was thinking they could survive alone when facing a common enemy. She looked at each council member. I vote we join this fight. Not just for Earth, but for all life. The vote was close. 7 to join, 5 against. As dawn broke over the station, Eric found himself again at the observation window, Sci-F beside him. Your ship leaves tomorrow, the alien said. You'll represent Earth at Proxima Station, where the coalition gathers. Eric nodded, watching Earth turn slowly below them. He wondered how many would volunteer for this mission to save worlds they had never seen. Ready? Samantha asked, joining them. No, Eric admitted, but we'll go anyway. The stars no longer looked peaceful to him. Somewhere out there, darkness was spreading, and humanity had just joined its first interstellar war. 6 months passed quickly. The EDF Defender, Earth's most advanced warship, cut through the darkness of space with its sleek hull gleaming under distant starlight. Commander Eric Lewis stood on the bridge, watching as the massive structure of Proxima Station came into view. "It's huge," said Lieutenant Alan Rivera, the ship's tactical officer. The station looked like a metal star with 12 points, each one built by a different alien species. "Home sweet home for the next few months," Eric replied. "At least until we figure out how to stop the void." Pilot Joe Harper guided the ship toward their assigned dock. "Commander, I'm getting docking instructions. Their system is different from ours." "Let Grace handle it," Eric said. Chief Engineer Grace Martins nodded from her station. "Already on it. I've been studying their tech specs. Different, but not impossible." The EDF Defender slid smoothly into its berth, locking into place with a soft shudder. Eric took a deep breath. "All right, people. Let's go meet our new allies." The station's main gathering hall buzzed with activity. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved with purpose. Some floated in the air, others crawled along special paths on the walls, and many walked on 2 or more legs. Dr. Samantha Wright couldn't stop staring. "I've studied xenobiology my whole life, but seeing this many species in one place is overwhelming." A tall, insect-like being approached them. "Earth representatives. I am Kiv Toll of the Gen Collective. I will show you to your quarters and brief you on tomorrow's council meeting." As they followed Kiv Toll through the station, Eric noticed how other species watched them, some with curiosity, others with what looked like hope. "They're all counting on us," Ellen whispered. "Not just us," Eric corrected. "All of us together." The next day, representatives from all 12 species gathered around a large circular table. Zara Eth of the Luminary stood to speak. "The void has changed course. It will reach the Navi homeworld in less than 2 months. We must decide how to proceed." A hologram appeared in the center, showing the void's path. Grace studied it with narrow eyes. "That's not random movement," she said. "It's avoiding certain systems and targeting others." The room grew quiet. "Explain," demanded a crystalline being that glittered when it moved. Grace walked to the hologram. "Look at these patterns. The void is avoiding systems with young stars and targeting worlds with advanced technology." "That suggests intelligence," Samantha added, "or programming." Kiv Toll clicked his mandibles. "The Gen have analyzed this data for months and saw no pattern." Joe stepped forward. "With respect, sometimes fresh eyes see things differently. That's why the Coalition needed humans, right? We think differently." The meeting lasted hours. The Coalition had planned to evacuate the Navi, a peaceful telepathic species, but Eric proposed a different approach. "What if we try to slow it down instead? Give other worlds more time to prepare." "How?" asked Zareth. Eric looked at Grace. "Tell them your idea." Grace explained her theory about quantum displacement technology. "We can't destroy the void, but maybe we can trap parts of it in pocket dimensions, making it smaller and slower." The alien scientists were skeptical but intrigued. After much debate, a plan formed. Most Coalition forces would help evacuate the Navi, while a smaller strike force led by the humans would test Grace's theory. That night, Eric couldn't sleep. He walked the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Worried?" Samantha asked, joining him. "We've never fought anything like this before," Eric admitted. "No one has. That's why they need us." She pointed to a distant blue star. "That's where the Navi live. Beautiful world, from what Zaraeth told me. Crystal cities that float above blue oceans." Eric nodded. "And we're going to save it, or die trying." 2 days later, the EDF Defender led a small fleet of ships toward the Navi homeworld. As they entered faster than light travel, Eric sent one final message to Earth. "Coalition engage. Operation Lighthouse begins now." The stars stretched into lines of light, and they were gone. The Navi homeworld looked like a blue jewel against the blackness of space, Crystal cities floated above vast oceans, connected by bridges of light. The EDF Defender entered orbit alongside 5 alien ships. "It's beautiful," Eric said as he looked at the view screen. "Hard to believe it could all be gone soon." A soft voice spoke in their minds. "We welcome you, defenders of life." Dr. Samantha Wright touched her temple. "Telepathic communication. The Navy are making contact. Can they hear our thoughts?" Ellen asked nervously. "Only what we choose to share," the voice answered. "Please come to our main city. We must prepare together." Joe guided their shuttle down to a landing platform that seemed to be made of solid light. When they stepped out, they were met by tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and large, silver eyes that reflected the light like mirrors. "I am Ilara, leader of the Crystal City," said one of the Navy, her thoughts flowing directly into their minds. "We thank you for coming." "We need to start evacuations immediately," Eric said. "The void will be here in less than a week." Ilara's eyes dimmed slightly. "Many of my people have already left, but some of us must stay. This world holds sacred places that cannot be abandoned." Eric looked at Samantha, who shrugged. "We can't force them to leave." "Then we'll protect as many as we can," Eric decided. Over the next 4 days, they worked nonstop. Grace and her engineering team set up quantum displacement devices around the planet. The Navy helped by linking their crystal technology with the human devices. "The crystals amplify the quantum field," Grace explained to Eric. "With this, we might be able to trap pieces of the void." Meanwhile, Samantha made an important discovery. "The Navy can sense the void's presence even before our sensors can detect it. Their telepathic abilities reach farther than any technology." "That could give us an advantage," Eric said. On the 5th day, Ilara suddenly clutched her head. "It comes," she whispered. "The darkness approaches." The coalition ships moved into position. The EDF Defender led the smaller, faster vessels, while larger alien ships formed a defensive line around the planet. "All hands to battle stations," Eric ordered. "Prepare quantum devices for activation." At first, they saw nothing. Then the stars began to disappear, section by section, as if being eaten. The void appeared as a massive wall of shifting darkness. "It's huge," Ellen whispered. "How can we fight something like that?" "One piece at a time," Eric answered. "Target the leading edge and fire." The coalition ships fired energy weapons at the void. Most seemed to be absorbed without effect, but the combined fire from multiple ships opened temporary gaps in the darkness. "Now, Grace," Eric shouted. Grace activated the quantum devices. Beams of energy shot from the planet's surface into the void. Where they hit, parts of the darkness seemed to fold in on themselves and disappear. "It's working," Grace yelled. "We're trapping pieces of it in pocket dimensions." But the void fought back. Tendrils of darkness shot out, wrapping around one of the alien ships and crushing it. "Evasive maneuvers," Eric ordered as a tendril reached for them. Joe spun the ship with incredible skill, barely avoiding the attack. "It's learning our patterns," he shouted. In the midst of battle, Alan studied his tactical display with narrowed eyes. "Commander, I'm seeing something strange. The void isn't moving randomly. It's avoiding our quantum beams, but it's specifically targeting power sources. It's hunting energy," Eric realized. "Grace, can we use that?" For hours, the battle raged. 3 coalition ships were destroyed, but the void's advance slowed. Finally, it began to retreat, leaving half the Navi world intact. As the void disappeared from their sensors, the crew of the EDF Defender watched in exhausted silence. "We did it," Samantha said. "We saved half the planet." "But the void is still out there," Eric replied, looking at the stars. "And now it knows how we fight." The EDF Defender limped back to Proxima Station. Battle damage marked its hull, but the crew felt proud. They had faced the void and survived. In the main council chamber, leaders from all species gathered to hear their report. Eric stood before them, his uniform still dirty from emergency repairs. "The quantum displacement technology works," he explained. "We trapped portions of the void in pocket dimensions, which slowed its advance. But it wasn't enough to stop it completely." Kiv Toll of the Zen Collective clicked his mandibles. "Our scientists have analyzed the battle data. We have made a disturbing discovery." He activated a hologram showing the void structure at the molecular level. "This is not a natural phenomenon. The patterns are too regular, too designed." Silence fell over the room. "Are you saying someone made this thing?" Alan asked. "Precisely," Kiv Toll answered. "The void appears to be an ancient weapon, created by a species that no longer exists. It was programmed to target and eliminate advanced energy technology. But it's evolved beyond that," Samantha added. "It's consuming everything now, not just technology." A representative from a silicon-based species spoke up. "If it was created, can it be destroyed?" "That's what we need to find out," Eric said. Later, in the station's engineering bay, Grace worked with Gen engineers on a new device. "We're calling them void anchors," she explained to Eric. "They're like the quantum displacement devices, but more powerful. They could potentially trap larger portions of the void." "How many can we build?" Eric asked. "Maybe a dozen with the materials we have," Grace answered. "Not enough to stop the void completely, but enough to slow it down more effectively." Meanwhile, Joe discovered something unusual about himself. During combat simulations, he could predict the void's movements before they happened. "It's like I can feel which way it's going to move," he tried to explain to Eric. "I don't know how, but it might help us in the next battle." As days passed, tensions grew among the coalition species. In a private meeting, representatives from 3 advanced worlds suggested a controversial plan. "We should focus our defenses on worlds with the most advanced technology," one of them said. "Less developed planets could be sacrificed to buy us time." Eric slammed his fist on the table. "That's not happening. We either save everyone or no one." Admiral Jackson, who had arrived from Earth with reinforcements, backed him up. "Earth stands with the commander. All worlds deserve protection, regardless of their development level." The Gen representative, Kiv Toll, seemed torn. The logical choice would be to save those with the most to offer the coalition. "And who decides what's most to offer?" Eric asked angrily. "The Navy seemed primitive until we discovered their telepathic abilities could detect the void before our sensors. Every species has value." The argument ended unresolved, but a deeper divide had formed within the coalition. That evening, urgent news arrived. The void had changed course again. Instead of continuing along its previous path, it was now heading directly for the Eltaran system. "That's our main supply center," Kiv Toll said, his voice tense. 12 billion beings live in that system. "How long do we have?" Eric asked. "Less than a month," came the reply. Eric looked at his crew, who had gathered around him. "Then we have work to do." As they left the meeting, Samantha caught up with Eric. "Why would it change course so suddenly? It's like it knows where to hurt us most." "Maybe it does," Eric replied grimly. "If the void was created as a weapon, it might have intelligence, or at least programming that lets it identify and target strategic locations." Grace nodded. "And if it can learn, it's getting smarter with each encounter." "Then so must we," Eric said, looking at the star map showing the void's new path. "We need to be ready when it reaches Eltara. That's where we make our stand." The Eltaran system was beautiful. 6 planets orbited a golden sun, with the 3rd planet, Eltara Prime, glowing blue-green like Earth. Now this system was about to become a battlefield. 300 coalition ships gathered in defensive formation. 20 of those ships were from Earth, led by the repaired EDF Defender. Eric stood on the bridge, looking at the massive fleet on the view screen. "Largest fleet I've ever seen," Alan said, checking weapon systems. "Let's hope it's enough," Eric replied. Grace entered the bridge. "The void anchors are ready. We've placed them in a net formation around the system." Good work, Eric said. And Joe, are you ready? Joe nodded from the pilot's seat. Yes, sir. I can feel it coming already, like a cold spot in my mind. Dr. Samantha Wright had been studying Joe's strange ability. His brain patterns change when the void is near. It's like he's tuned to its frequency somehow. Let's use that advantage, Eric said. Joe will coordinate with the other ships to predict the void's movements. Admiral Jackson's voice came through the comm system. All ships, prepare for engagement. The void will arrive in 5 minutes. The waiting was the hardest part. Then, like before, stars began to disappear section by section. The void appeared, larger than before and moving faster. All ships, fire at coordinates Alpha 1, Eric ordered. Hundreds of energy beams hit the void simultaneously. Holes appeared in the darkness, and Grace activated the first set of void anchors. Huge chunks of the void were pulled into pocket dimensions, shrinking its mass. It's working, Grace shouted. But the void adapted quickly. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, destroying ships with terrifying speed. The coalition forces scattered, regrouped, and attacked again. Hours passed in desperate combat. We're losing too many ships, Alan reported grimly. The anchors aren't working as well as before. Suddenly, the EDF defender shook violently. A tendril had struck their main engine. Damage report, Eric shouted over the alarms. Engine core destabilizing, Grace replied, her face pale. We have minutes before it goes critical. Eric made a quick decision. Evacuate the ship. Get to the escape pods. What about you? Samantha asked. I'm staying with the ship, Eric said. If our core is going to blow anyway, I might as well make it count. I'm staying too, Alan said firmly. And me, added Joe. I can still feel where the void is weakest. The rest of the crew evacuated as Eric, Alan, and Joe turned the damaged ship toward the void center. Full speed, Eric ordered. Joe piloted the dying ship straight toward the heart of darkness. There's a pulse in the center. That might be its weak point. As they approached, a Gen battleship appeared beside them. Commander Kralvoss's voice came through the comm. We will provide cover for your approach, humans. You'll be destroyed, Eric warned. You have taught us that survival without principle is not survival at all, Kralvoss replied. May your ancestors welcome you home. The Gen ship moved between the Defender and the Void's attacks, taking massive damage but giving the humans time to reach their target. Prepare to detonate the quantum core, Eric ordered as they plunged into darkness. The Defender shuddered as the Void began crushing it. Warnings flashed on every screen. Now, Eric shouted. Grace, watching from an escape pod, saw a blinding flash of light. The quantum core detonation created a chain reaction inside the void. The darkness seemed to scream as it tore itself apart from within. To everyone's shock, emergency teleporters activated at the last second. Eric and Joe appeared on a nearby ship, though Alan was badly injured in the transport. The void split into multiple smaller entities, still dangerous but now significantly weakened and scattered. For the first time since the war began, cheers erupted across the coalition fleet. The void was not defeated, but it was no longer an unstoppable force. The smaller fragments could be contained with the remaining void anchors. As medical teams worked to save Alan's life, Eric looked out at the stars again. They had won a critical victory, but at terrible cost. Half the coalition fleet was gone, including the brave Gen ship that had sacrificed itself. What now, Commander? Grace asked quietly. Now we find out where this thing came from, Eric said, and make sure it never threatens anyone again. 2 weeks after the battle at El Tara, Alan opened his eyes in the medical bay. His body was covered in healing bandages, but he was alive. Welcome back, Eric said, sitting beside the bed. Alan tried to smile. Did we win? For now. The void split into smaller pieces. The coalition is tracking them, keeping them contained with the anchors. Dr. Wright entered with a datapad. Good to see you awake, Alan. You'll need more rest, but you're going to be fine." "What's happening now?" Alan asked. Eric and Samantha exchanged glances. "We found something," Samantha said. The Gen scientists analyzed energy signatures from the void fragments. They traced its origin to a distant system beyond Coalition space. "We're sending an expedition," Eric added, "to find out where this weapon came from and how to stop it for good." 3 days later, a small exploration vessel left Proxima Station. Eric, Samantha, Grace, Joe, and representatives from the Luminary and Gen were on board. Alan stayed behind to recover fully. The journey took 9 days through faster-than-light travel. They arrived in an ancient system with a dying red star. 7 dead planets orbited it, all lifeless and gray. "No signs of life," Joe reported from the pilot's seat, "but I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the 4th planet." They landed on a dead world. The sky was dark red from the dying sun, and the ground was covered in dust. They wore environment suits as they stepped onto the surface. "This place has been dead for thousands of years," Samantha said, checking her scanner. "But there was a civilization here once." They followed the energy readings to a large mountain. Hidden in its side was a metal door covered in strange symbols. "Can we translate this?" Eric asked. Zara-Eth of the Luminary studied the symbols. "These are similar to ancient writings found across many worlds. They speak of the predecessors, a species said to have seeded life throughout the galaxy." Kivtol used Gen technology to open the door. Inside was a vast underground complex. The lights still worked, powered by some unknown energy source. "Remarkable," Grace whispered. "Their technology still functions after all this time." They found a central chamber filled with data terminals. Samantha connected their translation device to the main system. "It's a record," she said as information flowed across her screen. This was the homeworld of a species called the predecessors. They were at war with another ancient race, a war that lasted centuries. "What happened to them?" Eric asked. "They were losing," Samantha continued reading. "So they created a weapon as a last resort. A weapon that could target and destroy their enemy's technology." "The void," Grace said quietly. "Yes, but something went wrong. The weapon evolved beyond its programming. It began consuming everything, not just enemy technology. The predecessors tried to stop it, but it was too late. Deeper in the complex, they found something unexpected. A large cylindrical chamber contained a stasis pod. Inside was a being, preserved in suspended animation. "It's still alive," Samantha said in amazement. Grace studied the stasis controls. "The pod is designed to open when someone accesses it. Should we wake this being?" Eric hesitated, then nodded. "We need answers." The stasis field deactivated. The pod opened slowly. The being inside was tall, with pale gold skin and 4 arms. Its eyes opened, 3 large eyes set in a triangular pattern. "I am the Keeper," it spoke in a deep, resonant voice. "Last guardian of predecessor knowledge." When they explained what was happening, the Keeper's eyes widened in horror. "The void still exists. It was never meant to last beyond the war." "It's evolved," Eric explained. "It has a consciousness now." The Keeper moved to a control panel. "The void exists in 2 planes. The physical form you fight is just a projection. Its true consciousness exists in a dimension adjacent to normal space." "How can we stop it?" Eric asked. The Keeper looked at them with ancient, sad eyes. "To destroy the void, you must attack its consciousness directly. But organics cannot survive the transition to its realm." "There must be a way," Grace insisted. The Keeper thought for a moment. "Perhaps, with your void anchors modified into a dimensional key, a team could enter its realm using synthetic avatars, artificial bodies controlled remotely by your minds." "Is it dangerous?" Samantha asked. "Very," the Keeper admitted. "The procedure has only a 30% survival rate for the operators." Eric looked at his team. "We need volunteers." "I'm in," Grace said immediately. The others nodded. They had come too far to turn back now. Back at Proxima Station, volunteers gathered for the final mission. Eric stood before them in the main hall. "This will be dangerous," he told the assembled crew. "We don't know what we'll find inside the Void's realm. Only volunteer if you're sure." Admiral Jackson approached Eric after the briefing. "Command has offered you a promotion. You can stay here and coordinate the mission. No one would blame you." Eric shook his head. "My place is with my crew." In the end, 8 people volunteered. Eric, Grace, Joe, Samantha, Alan, now recovered, Zara Eth from the Luminary, Kiv Toll from the Gen, and Ilara from the Navi. The Keeper remained to maintain the connection between dimensions. The largest fleet ever assembled protected the station while they prepared. The void fragments were growing again, slowly merging back together. They had little time. In the medical bay, each volunteer lay on a bed connected to the synthetic bodies they would control. The bodies looked humanoid but were made of advanced materials that could withstand the void's environment. "The transfer will take 30 seconds, the Keeper explained. "Your consciousness will move into the synthetic form. If something goes wrong, we can pull you back, but it might cause brain damage." Grace looked at the others. "See you on the other side." The Keeper activated the transfer. Pain shot through Eric's body. His vision went dark, then returned. He was now looking through different eyes. He moved his new synthetic arms and legs. "Everyone okay?" he asked. His voice sounded strange in this new body. One by one, the others responded. All had made it through the transfer. The modified void anchor hummed in the center of the room. It would open a portal directly into the void's consciousness realm. "Dimensional key activating," the Keeper announced. "Portal will remain open for 6 hours. After that, I cannot guarantee your return." The anchor sparked, and a dark hole appeared in the air. It looked like the void itself, but smaller and controlled. "Let's finish this," Eric said. One by one, they stepped through the portal. The void's realm was a nightmare landscape. Broken pieces of consumed realities floated like islands in a sea of darkness. The stars here were dying or dead. In the distance, a massive swirling mass of dark energy pulsed like a heart. "That's the consciousness center," Zara Eth said. "We must place the dimensional key there." They moved carefully through the strange environment. Their synthetic bodies functioned well, but they could feel the void's pressure against their minds. "It knows we're here," Ilara whispered, her Navi telepathy detecting the void's awareness. Suddenly, shapes emerged from the darkness. They looked like distorted versions of beings from many worlds, echoes of those the void had consumed. "It's using knowledge from civilizations it's destroyed," Samantha realized. The team fought through waves of these shadow creatures. Kiv Toll fell first, his connection severed by the void's attack. His synthetic body collapsed. "Keep moving," Eric ordered. They pushed closer to the center. Joe used his strange connection to the void to guide them through gaps in its defenses. Ilara helped shield their minds from its influence. Another attack came. This time, Grace was hit. She managed to say, "Complete the mission," before her connection was cut. Finally, they'd reached the center. The dimensional key had to be placed directly into the core of the consciousness, a suicide mission. "I'll do it," Eric said, taking the key. "No," Zara Eth stopped him. "My people were the first to fall to this darkness. Let me end what began with us." Before they could decide, the void attacked again. Eric and Zara Eth both ran toward the core, each determined to make the sacrifice. Together, they forced the dimensional key into the void center. The darkness screamed. A cascade of energy began to collapse the entire realm. "Get to the portal," Eric shouted to the others. In the final moment, Samantha managed to lock onto Eric's consciousness pattern, but Zara Eth was lost. The void imploded across all dimensions. Where dead systems once existed, new energy was released, seeding stars. 3 years later, at a memorial ceremony on Earth, representatives from all coalition species gathered. Admiral Jackson, now Earth Council president, spoke of those lost and of a new beginning. "Today we form a permanent alliance among the stars," she announced, "not just for defense, but for exploration and growth." Eric, now in a new synthetic body, watched from the side. He was changed forever by his experience, but he had found purpose. Beside him stood the survivors of his crew. A new ship waited for them in orbit, the EDF Hope. Eric looked up at the stars, now filled with possibility instead of fear. "Ready for our next mission?" Samantha asked. Eric nodded. "Always."